I'm going to demonstrate to you a fantastic recipe using the Tilda steamed brown basmati rice, which is part of the 15 in the range of steamed rices. It's quick, convenient to use, and it works really well in this recipe. Now the ingredients that I need to use, I've got the Tilda steamed brown basmati rice, I've got an aubergine, some red pepper, garlic, some mushrooms, some pine nuts which have been lightly toasted, some sun-dried tomatoes, I've got some cheddar cheese and some parmesan cheese, some single cream, and some herbs. I've got parsley and thyme. So the first thing I need to do is start to prepare the vegetables. Now the aubergine just needs to be thickly sliced. About 1 centimetre pieces is absolutely fine. So rather than having loads and loads of oil being poured into the pan, if you just brush both sides with olive oil, you shouldn't need to keep adding any extra to the pan. And then you just want to pop them into your hot pan and then just fry them for a few minutes each side until they're lovely and golden brown. So while the aubergines are cooking, I'm now going to prepare my red pepper. So you just want to slice your pepper in half and then into quarters, and I'm going to remove the seeds. Now the red pepper in this recipe not only adds a great flavour, but it adds a lovely bright red colour to the recipe. And then I'm just going to very thinly slice into strips. And then just keep that to one side. Now as for the mushrooms, I'm going to thinly slice them. Add those to the plate. Right, so let's get a pan on, a separate pan for the mushrooms. And then just add a good drizzle of olive oil. So let's pop the mushrooms into that hot oil and then in with the peppers. And I'm just going to stir fry these just for a few minutes until they're starting to soften, and then I'm going to add some garlic. And in the meantime, I'm just going to turn over these aubergines because I think they're just going lovely and golden. Fantastic. So the mushrooms and peppers are just beginning to soften. I'm now going to just crush some garlic. So I'm going to use a couple of cloves of nice plump garlic. And this garlic can now be added to the pan with the mushrooms and the red peppers. And these aubergines are now ready. Layer them up into my dish. So I'll just swap the pans over. So we've got the higher heat going into this pan here. Now I'm going to increase the temperature because I want these vegetables to really take on a little bit of colour. And while they're doing that, I'm just going to chop up some sun-dried tomatoes. Now I've got some straight from the jar out of the oil. I'm going to take about 3. Now this is an optional extra for this recipe. As I said, I'm trying to keep it a sort of Mediterranean theme. It adds a really nice taste to it, but anything that you have in your store cupboard that you fancy adding to this basic recipe is absolutely fine. I'm just going to add those into the pan, along with a good handful of some toasted pine nuts. Again, this is just an optional extra for the recipe. You could add any nuts you wanted to. And now for the rice. The rice I'm using for this is the Tilda steamed brown basmati. It's part of the ready prepared rices and it's fantastic to use in something like this. It's quick and convenient, and all you need to do is just massage the pack just to release those grains. And tear off the top, and then you just tip it straight into your pan. Now obviously I'm using the ready prepared rice for this as part of the recipe range, but you can cook the rice from scratch. We've got the whole grain basmati, which is perfect to use as well. Just give yourself a little bit of extra time if you are going to do that. This is just perfect if you're in a rush. Add it to the pan and then just give it a stir around. At this stage you want to really heat this rice through. And there's other rices within the range that would be perfect to use in this particular recipe. There's the butternut squash brown basmati. We've even got roasted red pepper and courgette. And the fantastic thing about using the brown basmati rice is the bran layer contains so much goodness. It's full of amino acids, zinc, fibre, and the actual rice itself is low to medium GI, so it will keep you fuller for longer. Now the next thing we're going to add are some fresh herbs. I've got here some parsley and some thyme. I'm just going to really roughly chop them and straight into the pan, along with a couple of tablespoons of single cream, just to bind everything together. And then I can turn this off the heat, bring over our dish with the aubergines in, and then spoon this on top. There we go, last one. And then the last thing I need to do is just top this with some cheese. I've got some cheddar and some parmesan. Now obviously you can put any cheese on that you fancy. Blue cheese works really nicely as well as goat's cheese. So let's just grate some parmesan over the top of the cheddar, because it's a very strong flavour, the parmesan. We don't want to have too much. So now that's ready just to go under the grill for a few minutes until the top's golden and bubbling. And there it is, lovely and bubbling and golden on top. As you can see, this is a great recipe to make the most of the Tilda steamed brown basmati rice within a recipe. Now it serves 2 as a main course, or of course you can serve 4 people just as a lunch dish. So obviously this uses the Tilda steamed brown basmati rice, but that's not to say that you can't use the dry whole grain basmati. Just give yourself that extra bit of time to cook this from scratch, and then you can make the recipe in exactly the same way.